December 16, 1944. The Ardennes forest lay, silent, under fresh snow, and somewhere in that silence, 200,000 German soldiers were about to change everything. Along the Belgian and Luxembourg border, the American lines were thin, stretched across terrain no one thought the Wehrmacht would dare attack. But that assumption was about to cost American blood. The German offensive, called the Battle of the Bulge by those who would survive it, had begun. And within 2 days, a Belgian town called Bastogne would be surrounded, cut off, and starving. The only hope for the paratroopers trapped there was a general. Everyone said it could do the impossible. This is the story of the day Patton's tanks drove 60 miles in 24 hours to reach Bastogne. By the morning of December 18th, Eisenhower knew the situation was dire. The 101st Airborne Division was closing in on Bastogne. Some had only just arrived 4 hours ahead of the advancing German columns. They dig in, hold the crossroads, and pray for relief. But from where? The American lines were collapsing. No one had reserves. No one could get there in time. And yet, General George Patton was already thinking ahead, a week before the German attack. While every other general in Europe was celebrating, Patton had quietly ordered his staff to begin contingency planning. He'd sensed something in the enemy's movements, a tell no one else had caught. When Eisenhower called an emergency meeting in Verdun on December 19th, Patton walked in with 3 prepared plans to turn his entire army northward. While other generals were still processing the crisis, Patton had solutions ready to go. What Patton suggested seemed impossible. He would take his Third Army then, positioned along the Saar River, preparing to push deep into Germany and wheel it 90 degrees north. In peacetime, logisticians said that maneuver could take weeks, maybe longer. The supply lines alone would be a nightmare. The roads were frozen. The Germans controlled the high ground. But Patton didn't hesitate. "We can be fighting around Bastogne in 48 hours, he told Eisenhower. The room went quiet. Even Patton's own staff wasn't sure if it was possible. Eisenhower looked at him once, then nodded. "George, make it happen." By midnight of December 18th, the 4th Armored Division was already rolling north. By December 19th, at dawn, the 80th and 26th Infantry Divisions moved out. Soldiers who'd been digging in for a push into Germany suddenly found themselves wheeling their columns around in the middle of winter. Truck after truck, tank after tank, gun after gun, 133,000 vehicles, grinding through snow, mud, and ice. The logistics were nightmarish. Men hadn't slept. Officers were routing traffic by hand, organizing columns on frozen roads by lamplight. But Patton's staff, superbly trained, disciplined, ruthless, made it happen. They moved men and machines with a precision that bordered on the mechanical, and every unit understood the men in Bastogne were running out of time. December 21st, the temperature dropped below freezing. The roads became a sheet of ice, but the advance didn't slow. Patton drove in an open jeep through the snow, checking positions, pushing commanders, and making sure they understood the urgency. A soldier later remembered seeing him near Nancy, windswept and angry, demanding speed. "The speed of our movements is amazing," Patton wrote in his diary that night. "Even to me, it must constantly surprise the Germans." And it did. German commanders were watching the American collapse, expecting the Third Army to fold like so many other American units had in the opening days. They didn't. No, Patton had planned for this. They didn't know the Americans were already racing north through the snow. By December 22nd, the leading elements of Third Army were probing toward Bastogne, meeting pockets of German resistance. The Wehrmacht threw their best units at the advancing American columns, panzer divisions, SS, formations, mechanized infantry. But nothing could slow Patton down. His men fought through every roadblock, and when blocked, they found another road. December 23rd. The paratroopers in Bastogne were running low on ammunition. They'd held off 7 German assaults in 4 days. Inside the town, men were wounded, frostbitten, hungry. The German commander sent 4 men under a white flag to demand surrender. Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe, the temporary commander of the 101st, had one word for them: nuts. He said it plainly, matter-of-factly, and that single word, pie, kai, I, ain't, end, became legend. But legend wasn't going to resupply ammunition or evacuate the dying. Only Patton could do that. December 24th, Christmas Eve. The weather cleared, just enough for the air. Forced to drop supplies, ammunition, food, medicine. Some bombs fell on the Germans, too. The 101st held. Outside the town, Patton's spearhead was racing through the darkening landscape. The 4th Armored Division, under command of Major General Hugh Gaffey, was grinding toward Bastogne with a single focus: breakthrough. December 25th, Christmas. In Bastogne, men ate little. The 101st had given their rations to the wounded and the cold. Outside, Patton's forces closed on the town from every direction. The Germans, for the first time, realized something had gone wrong. The Americans weren't collapsing, they were attacking, and they were coming from a direction the Wehrmacht command had never expected. The German 5th Panzer Army commander couldn't believe it. Patton, the general everyone said was reckless, had just executed a perfect flanking maneuver while simultaneously fighting a defensive battle miles away. December 26th, early afternoon. The leading element of Patton's 4th Armored Division broke through. A Sherman tank named Cobra King smashed through the German line near Assenois, a small village on the southwestern edge of Bastogne, at approximately 4:50 in the afternoon. The crew commander signaled the paratroopers ahead. For the first time in 8 days, the 101st Airborne knew they weren't alone anymore. And that's when German High Command realized they'd lost. Walther Model, the German field marshal coordinating the Ardennes offensive, sat in his headquarters when he received the report. Patton had done it. 350 miles of movement, 60 miles in 24 hours for the spearhead. Noten: easy conditions, through enemy territory, in winter, against the Wehrmacht's best units. Model had tried to imagine how to stop Patton's advance. There was no stopping it. Patton didn't move around problems. He moved through them. And he'd changed the entire shape of the war. Some would later claim Hollywood would certainly claim that Patton did it all in 24 hours. That wasn't true. The actual relief had taken from December 19th to December 26th. But what was true was worse, in a way. What Patton had done was sustain an advance of that magnitude for an entire week in winter against resistance that would have stopped any other army. German generals had always believed American forces were soft, that they broke when attacked. Patton had just shown them they were wrong. The 101st Airborne remained in the thick of fighting for weeks. Bastogne became a process, battleground for months, but the encirclement was broken. Supplies came through, the wounded were evacuated, and the Germans, who'd begun their attack, convinced they could win, now understood that they'd already lost. Not just Bastogne, the war. Patton himself was asked later what he'd been thinking when Eisenhower gave him the order "I knew we could do it," he said. Not, "I hoped," not, "I believed." I knew. And his staff, his soldiers, and everyone who moved north in that blizzard believed him. So here's the question. What do you think changed Patton from being seen as a reckless general, a troublemaker who got troops killed in frontal assaults, to being remembered as a strategist whose one decisive maneuver turned the entire war? Was it luck, or was it something else entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. The duty we have to history is to remember moments like these, not just the victories, but the men and the choices that made them happen. If you want to see how Patton got to this moment, the battles that made him legendary, the injuries he overcame, the commanders who doubted him, subscribe now. In the next video, we're diving into Patton's rise from a tank commander everyone thought was too aggressive to the general who saved the war. See you there, and thanks for watching.